Hello guys, welcome to your sixth tutorial on how to create a website from scratch. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys something called databases and how we need databases in our website. Okay, so when you check the road and the web map that we're using, we are at the point where we have to create a sign-in for our teachers and students. So we have to provide an option where the teacher will enter his credentials or the students will enter their credentials. Credentials just mean something like email and password or phone number and password or those kind of things. Pins, those are called credentials. Credentials are secret information that should be known only to the user. Okay, so when you go to, for example, facebook.com and you see email or phone here, they're asking for your credentials and your password. So where does database come in? After you enter your email and you enter your password, what Facebook does is that they take your credentials and you know what they do next? So they have a certain table on their server, maybe called the table may be called users. All right, users. And inside this table, they have maybe email, password, first name, maybe other name, last name. Okay, so Facebook will take your credentials and check in users whether your email and password exists. Okay, so it comes here and checks whether there is an email and there's actually a password which exists like that. Okay, so as you can see, this is an example of how database tables are. So Facebook will take your credentials, which is emmanuelgap@gmail.com and my password, and comes to the table to check if there is actually an email like this and a password like this on the same line. So when there is something like that, then it will return my ID. So it will return this ID, which is 2. Okay, and the 2 will be stored, and the ID is stored on the browser. Okay, then they open the news feed. Okay, so this is the process. It checks whether your credentials is in the database, then it returns the ID by your credentials because the ID is unique. No one in the database has the same ID as I have. Okay, so every user has a unique ID. Then they save the ID in the browser, in the browsing, in this browser. Okay, so I'm going to show you all that. After they save the ID in the browser, then they open the news feed. Okay, so how do they show me my post? Because they stored my ID in the browser. So whenever they go to any page on their domain, I've showed you guys what domain are. Any page on their domain, what they will see, what you will see is your information because they've stored your ID on the browser. So they use your ID to go into their database and fetch your information. Okay, so they use my ID, come back to the database to check for the first name, which is Emmanuel, then they'll display it. So it's all related to something we call an ID. Okay, so once you've understood this simple thing, so let me add a sixth one. If cred okay, so if my credentials are not valid, that means that there is no one with that with those kind of credentials. What they will do is maybe they will give me an error. Okay, so they told me that the password that you've entered is incorrect because there was nothing like that which matched in the database. Okay, so that's what we're going to learn now, databases. Now you've understood the function of databases in web pages. So now how do we go about it in what we're going to do? Well, you come to your AMPPS homepage, then you click on phmyadmin. All right. So once you click on phmyadmin, it will open this page and click on new. So we're going to create a new database and we're going to name it the same. Maybe we're going to name it test base. You can name it you can give it any name you want. So this can have a name called test base. Okay. So then you click on create. So once you created the database, you have to create a table. And which table do we need now? We need users. All right. So MySQL is the language you are working with now. All right. So I told you that we have 5 languages which you're going to use interchangeably. I've shown you this, which is HTML. Now we're going to work with MySQL. So MySQL runs queries on the server. Queries are just statements which execute something on the server. All right. So unlike this spreadsheet application, which allows you to just create new tables and just add any column you want to add, with MySQL we have to type some codes. Okay, and they are called queries. So how do you create a table on MySQL? So you're going to create exact table here in MySQL. So create table users. Okay, so these two things come first. Create table users. Then you bring your brackets, 2 brackets. Then you bring your cursor inside the brackets. Then we're going to start typing our columns. So you see we have the name of the table and we are going to type our columns, right? Okay, so the first thing we need is this ID. Okay, so we need an ID. Please make your columns small letters. All the capital letters don't really matter, but then it makes it organized in a way. So ID and the type of value which are in ID are only integers. All right. So first you need the name of the column. Then you need the type of the column, which is integers. Then we need something which will make the ID always increase as we continue working with the database. So it's called auto increment. Then you bring a comma. Then you type your next column. Our next column is email. Okay, email is just is a mixture of numbers and characters. I mean alphabets. So you just type varchar. That is what we use for numbers and alphabet. Then you specify the size, the limit. Let's make it 50. That means that no one can have an email which is more than 50 characters. Okay, and let's make it not now. Not now. I'll explain it later on. Okay, so we do the same thing for password and first name, other name, and last name. So password. Let me just make it fast. Okay, now we are done with our columns. And one more thing I also want to add is that our users that we are going to work with are teachers and students. Okay, so we need a way to tell that this is a teacher and that this is a student. So you can add one last column to it, maybe called the type of the user. Okay, so this type could be just one, maybe S for students, or maybe T for teachers. So maybe we can just use one thing to differentiate. So type will be a character, just one character. That is char. That is variable char, like a lot of characters. So 1. Okay, then not now 2. All right. So after we are done, we have to give a column in the so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 columns, and we have to give one a uniqueness so that it can never repeat. So which one of our columns do you think should be very unique? That is our ID column, because 7 should not be found again no matter what in the IDs. So we add something called primary key to this. Okay, so we are done creating our users table. Okay, I said I'll go over what not now means. All right, so when you don't give anything inside this column, assuming this other name, the person doesn't type anything in the other name. All right, what my SQL is what we're working with. What my SQL will return is now. It will just return now there, but we don't want that. We want there to be empty. So to make that empty, you have to add not now to the after the type of the column. And the difference between varchar and char is varchar doesn't. So this is what it does. In memory allocation, varchar doesn't save the number 50 in memory. But then when you take char for instance, char saves the number 50. So when you use char and varchar for the same amount of numbers, for example, make it varchar 1, that means that varchar won't save it, but then it will check for the limits, while char will only save it up to 1. So char will take up some memory. But then if you know specifically the amount of the number of characters which are going to be put inside your column, use char, because it will be faster that way, because it knows the amount, so it doesn't check for the limits. All right, so now we are done with this table. Let's click on go. So yeah, everything was correct. All right, so now we see our users table has been created for us successfully. All right, so you can see the columns here and all that. So this is what I wanted to show you for this tutorial. So the next tutorial, we are going to connect the website, the web page like this, okay, such that whenever you type your credentials, it will come and check in this table whether your credentials is there, just like how I explained to you in this. All right.